Hello and welcome to today's episode 94, and possibly the last Nintendo handheld review we'll be covering here on our channel. Well, that is for a while at least, likely until Nintendo offers up the next generation Switch Lite 2, or something along those lines. Sadly, this is not chronologically sequenced as the focus of this episode is a bit of an oddity. The Pokemon Mini handheld system came in 3 colors, and was initially offered for sale November 16, 2001. In development it was given the production code of MIN-001, and to this day, it remains as one of Nintendo's most enigmatic and somewhat baffling offerings. But before we get stuck into today's star in focus, I'd like to take a couple of minutes to look back at our last episode and the photo quiz question we like to call, "What in the world?" The picture quiz question for this regular segment was perhaps too generous in so much it was unusually clear. You could see the old Nintendo logo, and there was a date visible, that being 1980. So with all that combined we had a good idea of provenance of the item shown. We covered this toy, or puzzle in episode 11 just over 3 years ago, and it was the retail package 10 billion barrel or tumbler puzzle, and one astute and knowledgeable viewer got the object right after the episode uploaded. So a super well done to Paco Papa 02. It's perhaps somewhat ironic that one of Nintendo's most obscure handhelds is also so strongly aligned with one of its most instantly recognizable brands, but to fully understand why the diminutive Pokemon Mini wasn't quite as successful as it probably should have been, is relatively easy to understand, and it basically boils down to how it was marketed. The best word I can think of is, poorly. The games were way too expensive for what they were, and compared to Nintendo's Gameboy Advance, which also released in 2001, its tiny monochrome screen felt like a relic from a bygone era. However, this diminutive little device actually boasted some pretty ingenious and groundbreaking ideas for its day, and in the years since its release, it has been successfully busted wide open by many of the homebrew coders who have managed to get it to perform tricks never thought possible at its launch. The Pokemon Mini is a handheld game console designed and manufactured by Nintendo's own in-house research and development, R&D3, and was intended to be used only for specifically tailored Pokemon minigames. It is the smallest cartridge-based system that Nintendo has ever produced. It includes an LCD screen and a D-pad control. Amazingly, it also features an infrared port, an internal timer, a built-in shock detector, and a usable vibrator for force feedback. Interestingly, later on some of the Pokemon mini-games were included in the Nintendo GameCube game Pokemon Channel, which contains an emulator of the Pokemon Mini itself, and this later assisted the homebrew community in recreating existing and newly developed games. The handheld system was released in 3 different colors, as we mentioned at the start of this episode. The first box art is Wooper Blue. Wooper is a Gen 2 Pokemon, who is an amphibious type, portrayed as sluggish and unaware of its surroundings. Then we have the Chikorita Green. Chikorita is a small dinosaur-like Pokemon, particularly resembling a Sauropod. It is light green in color and its eyes are dull red. Around its neck are tiny buds that have the ability to shoot out into long vines. And lastly we have Smoochum Purple, that kinda looks pinkish, another Gen 2 Pokemon. Smoochum is a kind of humanoid Pokemon. It has short blonde straw-like hair and large pouting pink lips. Its upper body and feet are cream-colored, and it does not appear to have any visible digits. The purple in its lower body also resembles a diaper, and it's known to be very vain when presented with its own reflection in either water or a mirror. All in all, a strange choice to have as the Pokemon Mini's main promotional characters. Although mostly overlooked as a games platform, and considered little more than an upscale Tamagotchi, this little gem of a system is the first Nintendo handheld to have the actual motion controls built in, predating the Nintendo 3DS by a margin, and the only Nintendo handheld to have a rumble device in the console itself. Remember, the Nintendo Switch only has rumble in the detachable controllers, and is omitted in the Switch Lite completely. So while many may suggest it was a relic at its launch, it actually was brimming with future tech. The Pokemon Mini was preceded by the Pokemon Pikachu handheld, which, although it was not a cartridge-based system, had a similar footprint size. As noted at the start of this episode, the Pokemon Mini was launched in 2001, at a cost of $40, with the first issued games costing $20. The system included a single AAA battery, wrist strap, and the game card of Pokemon Party Mini, a multi-cartridge that showcased the whole suite of functions available to the gamer. The Pokemon Mini is powered by an 8-bit Nintendo Minx CPU, which is a customized version of the Seiko S1C88 CPU. The system's monochrome screen came with a resolution of 96 pixels by 64 pixels, which was ample for the micro-sized screen. That single AAA battery was good for up to 60 hours of continuous play, which was outstanding for such a small battery, and suggests that the system was able to operate quite efficiently compared to other contemporary handheld game consoles, which often ate the batteries in a matter of a few hours. 10 Pokemon branded games were released for the system, with only Japan receiving all 10 games released. They were as follows. Firstly, the game demo cart called Pokemon Party Mini. This accompanied, and was pre-packaged with every brand new console. Next up was the game called Pokemon Pinball Mini, although it was not a traditional pinball game in reality. We also received the Pokemon Puzzle collection of micro games. Pokemon Zany Cards was another enjoyable and fun mini game, with a flip-over memory pairing card theme. Europe received the English language version of the Mini's Pokemon Tetris. Although it never came to North America, it is often credited as the best game in the series. The twist is collecting Pokemon as you clear 4 rows on the traditional Tetris game. The next one was released as a Japanese exclusive, called Pokemon Race Mini. The game is a racing platform-styled version of gameplay, featuring Pikachu. Pichu Brothers Mini, which again is sadly a Japanese-only exclusive, is another collection of mini games. As is Pokemon Mini Puzzle Volume 2. Togepi's Great Adventure is an adventure game, in which you have to guide Togepi out of a tower, avoiding traps. Pokemon Breeder Mini is a traditional Tamagotchi-style caretaking game, which is also a Japanese exclusive. The Pokemon Mini console, despite being so small, has a full suite of 6 control buttons. This includes the 2 classic A and B buttons, just like the normal Game Boy, but there's a unique single shoulder button, called the C button, located on the top right side on the unit, which may initially seem somewhat odd, but facilitates one-handed playability. There is also a very small central power button, a quality D-pad for precise navigation, and on the reverse, a cartridge release switch, that locks in the cart to keep the game's cartridges firmly in place. With a similar wireless multiplayer option to the Game Boy Color, the Pokemon Mini is a really great game to play with buddies. It also functions as a watch, as an alarm clock, and as an internal timer for several key games. Well, that just about wraps up our quick look at the Pokemon Mini, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as me. However, with that all said and done, we have just got time to look at this episode's photo quiz question, that we here on this channel call What in the World? So, if you think you know what this item is, drop a comment in the section below. If not, please feel free to check in on our next episode, and all will be revealed. That just leaves me with the annoying but essential YouTuber request for your support. A thumbs up or even a subscription, a helpful and encouraging comment or a share of this episode to someone you think might be interested. But mostly, I'd like to thank you for your continued support and time.